Aloha kākou apau. I'm Kaiopua Fife with the Kiwani Foundation, bringing you another segment of Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's future. And today we're very pleased to have with us Joanne Kahanamoku Stirling. Aloha and mahalo for being with us.
Thank you very much.
We're glad to be all together here at the Ritz-Carlton.
Thank you.
We have an opportunity to get some of these cultural, historical treasures here interviewed on video segments, and we're very pleased that you could spend some time with us.
Thank you very much.
I'll just reiterate one of the purposes of our program really is to motivate our viewers to get out and determine what their kuleana is to society, find a focus, and start working on it. And we figure the best way to help people do that is to see people like yourself who have maybe found several kuleana throughout their life and really worked hard at it. Because sometimes people need motivation, and they also need to know that there are good things being done out there.
Sure.
And so many of our people aren't aware that there are positive things happening. How long have you been affiliated with the celebration here at the Ritz-Carlton?
15 years.
15 years from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I think you were also involved in the planning, I think, to help put it together, huh?
Not really.
No?
I don't, unless viewpoints were taken,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. But not really initially. I just started, was invited, and Village Galleries here and in Lahaina carries my artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps that was one of the intent, was to bring
Right.
me here, yeah. And it's been rewarding, not just my practice of feather making, but the ambiance and the what the Cliff Nioli here, what he brings to each one of us, putting us in perspective, and the importance of our culture, getting up early in the morning, and hiuvai is, cleanse yourself and all of this, And it's really rewarding, because if I'm at the Outrigger Waikiki Hotel, I get up in the morning and I go in that water and it takes me back to my childhood.
No.
Because temperatures never leave you.
Yeah.
You
It's
can determine
embedded
each
in the memory.
destination.
Embedded in the memory. You mentioned earlier today that the hiuvai ceremony this morning, you got a telephone call at what time?
4:30.
4:30 in the morning, and you never even asked for a wake-up call.
No. Called me twice.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So you made it down to hiuvai.
Practical joke, maybe.
Yeah, but you showed up. Always
Yeah.
there. Well, going back to the things that have made you the person you are, when do you feel that you first really had a motivation of moving in any direction? First thing that you moved forward on?
Well, to go back in my life is, my mother's from Tahiti.
Uh-huh.
Okay. She was Sarah Te Namoyata Dexter.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like the import-export people, the Bambridge, Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
And she graduated from Notre Dame
Mm-hmm.
in California and San Francisco. And her oldest sister brought her up. And as a gift, she said to my mom, for graduating, and you can go anywhere around the world as a gift for doing this. And so my mom picked Hawaii. And in later years, when she was telling me this story, I said, why did you pick Hawaii? She says, oh, that was the paradise. Of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Paradise of the Pacific. I said, yeah, but we used to relate to Tahiti as being the paradise. So when she came here, this was in the 20s, and she was under the ward of Judge Heen.
Yeah.
And of course she mingled with all, I want to be nice. No. Well, she mingled with the elite, the white folk and everything. And then I guess she went to Royal Hawaiian Hotel with some of his daddy singing and and all of this stuff, and she fell in love with my father, and that was the hype of the Olympics. Because Duke was, older than my dad. My dad was Sam Alapai Kahanamoku, and he had the Olympics he was in Paris. It was in Paris, and he was was Johnny Weissmuller, my father, and then Duke.
Mm-hmm.
But my father slowed down so Duke could come in second.
No kidding.
Yeah, and he was almost disqualified.
Mm.
But he ended up getting the bronze. But so they met, fell in love, and had myself, I'm the oldest, and then my brother Bunny was Sam Alapai Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
but we called him Bunny. And then they divorced, and she took us back to Tahiti when we were kids.
Mm.
And so we lived there for a while, and my father was going through the courts because he wanted us to come back here to be brought up as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So we came back here, and of course we couldn't speak English, and so they threw us in Sacred Hearts Academy there.
Mm-hmm.
But
So you were speaking French, I guess. Huh?
yeah, and we didn't speak English. But the trauma of that whole situation when I was 14, and then when the war broke out too, we were separated. She was in Tahiti and we were
Right.
here, living with my dad. But the trauma created a very insecure situation for me.
Mm-hmm. 14 years old, kind of a touchy time of life, anyway.
Well, yeah, and I was always unhappy and all that jazz. And so anyway, at 14, I was going to the psychiatrist, and my dad said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I want to know what's wrong with me," And you got to think of those particular times, the 30s, the 40s, coming off of the war and all of this stuff. So the changes in society was very extreme,
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then being brought up from a family that was born before the 1900s, and their philosophy of how they were brought up by their mother,
Yeah.
the exception of annexation and all that happened during those times. So the 6 brothers, my father and 6 brothers and 3 sisters, later in life I kind of analyzed that they were proud of their culture,
Right.
but they had to learn to accept what was changing in that particular period. They were gentlemen. Of course they drank and, had a little bit of their own problems and whatnot. But the overall, what I found out as growing up, there was a very strong relationship in being who they were. And that's when I say that, some people went underground, and if they didn't go underground, we wouldn't have our language today.
Right.
And the keys that,
Right.
that are available that you find, there weren't burials. So I learned from learning about, like, being very insecure, lack of mother love, anxiety, and all that kind of jazz. So I lived with those 3, but my Hawaiian name is Kamuela.
Kamuela, huh?
Yeah. And I said to my dad one day, "Why did you give me that name, Kamuela? Instead of one 13-letter word or something, name." And he says, "I didn't name you that. Your grandmother did."
Oh.
I said, "Grandma named me Kamuela?" You would think the firstborn. He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Can't you tell?" Tomboy, took after my dad, swam, cut class, changed schools. He didn't know about all of that. Supposed to go Roosevelt and way up Farrington.
Right.
Tardy every day. We lived in Kahala, But I was just Kalohi kind of thing, Surf, swim, and just did all those activities. And so
ocean stuff.
Ocean.
Yeah.
Golf. I had to quit golf to do my hulu. Anything that's challenging.
Yeah.
And hulu is the biggest challenge in my life. It's a mindset. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. And that's what you're immersed in now, and you've been doing it for how many years?
About 25 years.
About 25 years.
Yeah, not too long after.
But before that period, getting back to the ocean,
the
as
canoe,
kind of
Hokulea changed.
that's you had a little involvement with that.
Yeah, we started in 1976, and the interest was there. And when they came back in 1977, 4 of us, Leon, my ex-husband Stirling, John Cruz, Macaulay Yates, and myself, we took the canoe all over the islands, which she'd never been. We would bypass Honolulu, and of course, she didn't have a docking at that time, so people were busy after the aftermath of Tahiti. And so we were training people as we were going from island to island. And then in 1978, of course, they swamped. Leon was on there, and then Governor Ariyoshi insisted that you make a trip because it was changing the community and bringing it. They were awakening to a culture that was very, very important.
A resurgence, renaissance.
Yeah, that's when the Renaissance.
Right.
Men were doing the hula, starting
Right.
to do the hula and
Right.
all of this stuff. So
Pride
1980,
in being Hawaiian, being Polynesian. Yeah.
So in 1980, we had to go through a Briggs-Myers test.
What is a Briggs-Myers test?
See if you're compatible.
Oh, you mean
others.
crew-wise?
It's
For close quarters for long,
close
extended
quarters.
periods of time, huh?
So we went through a Briggs-Myers test. And
Do you think the test worked?
yeah, when we got on the canoe after a couple of weeks, then you could see,
Yeah.
And unfortunately the strongest was not the weakest, but he had some problems.
Yeah.
And it's just compatibility, but you have to understand when you go on a long voyage like that, you go through about 6-7 different stages.
Phases, yeah.
Anxiety to leave.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave, you hold back. You want to, you're leaving your home.
Right.
Your home.
Right.
And when you're in the doldrums, there's nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than putting yourself in that immediate environment,
You have to
some
remove
people,
yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I experience infinity, being one with yourself, in a position, being out in that ocean, especially at night.
Mm-hmm.
When you're within the elements. And so those things, the canoe really changed and gave me a better outlook into
When you say
culture.
you experience infinity, what does that mean? Does that mean that you saw yourself as a part of the big picture?
Being one with the universe.
One with the universe.
And I felt that once before. Four of us, this was in the 50s, we went down to Mexico. And we said, okay, we'll take so much money, but we got to fish, for our food because you don't eat food down there.
Right.
And I took Henry Miller's book, Colossus of Maruso, or something. I was reading that. But we were in a very, very, a place where there was no noise, no people, no nothing. And that was the first time I experienced infinity, was being one with the universe. And the second time was on the canoe. But that's why I'm saying that these things, the elements, and letting yourself into it changed my whole life. Mm-hmm. When I got off, I was working for Kamehameha Schools, trying to do a curriculum for Hokulea, and Elder Rita Kahalavai was teaching feather making, and so I took from her. But again, you're challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Because I taught for many years, but a lot of my students never made it. Kili'i Raisho had quite a number of students that I taught.
Mm-hmm.
I probably came down less than 20 people.
Now, are you talking about
mindset?
Teaching the hulu?
Yeah.
Well, I found in Kauai we've worked with kappa, and we've gone from taking care of the growing and making the tools and then making the kappa. And, we've had, over years, we've had these big groups of people, and they'll come in, and everybody's all jazzed up.
Sure.
But over the period of a 3 or 4 or 5 day workshop, you can spot whether somebody's got it or not, And for most people, it's not a fit. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if part of that hulu, I haven't done much hulu. The only thing I've done is cuts, doing the cuts. Sabra's done hulu, but my thing was to do the cuts and get get the most out of the feather, and I can see that you would have to be able to really kind of
you have to
let just get into it and no distractions and kind of Zen like thing. I would expect.
Most of the men I taught were really fine, very meticulous.
Yeah.
More than women.
Right. Yeah.
But with the classes, and I taught here on Maui at Canoe, senior center there. And there comes the kolohi, and I said, okay, we're going to go on a tour in Honolulu. And never been to any of the museums or, anything like that. Mm-hmm. Took them there, and we went all over the palace, behind closed doors, Bishop Museum. The next year, okay, we're going to go Big Island. So I got Al Laganero and Gordon Piana's wife, 3 cars. Started from Hilo and took them all through that whole, gave them that. The third year we went to Tahiti.
Oh my goodness.
And I mean, in my class I had a lot of elderly women that were Japanese, but I'll tell you, they just let themselves go and wore pareos and did the Tahitian and the whole bit.
Into
Oh
it, huh?
yeah, just wonderful.
Is there a history or is hulu a part of the Tahitian culture too?
No. In fact, we demonstrated at the Heva.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wearing a hat and I had a blue peacock. And this boy kept standing behind me watching me.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, "I can buy?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "No, you can have it." So I gave it to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know he was a wood carver.
Oh.
In fact, I don't have my bracelet on, but
Mm-hmm.
so he took me over and he said, "Pick anything you want," in his English.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some huge keys and whatnot.
Right.
So I thought, I got to get one so I can carry it on the plane.
Sure. Practical thinking of the logistics.
But see, with them is you have to educate them. They don't sign it,
Mm-hmm.
their work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made him sign it, carve his initials in the back.
Right.
And I said, every time you do your work, you must. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like when I went to Easter Island. Same thing. They never signed their work until I said, you got to sign your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Identify yourself as the artist.
Identify as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So
How do you do that with hulu?
Hulu.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You can't sign it. But every one is a unique.
Well, I always finished it off with kukuina.
So that's kind of your trademark.
Kind of, but the significance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kukuina.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. But other than that.
So you've got. You were talking about having just completed a pretty big project that's going on display at the Bishop.
Yeah, there's 6 of us that are going to be honored this year,
Mm-hmm.
November 3rd, and when I got the letter, I cried. I mean, it was just, you don't look for things like that.
Right.
And it brought me further into the culture and further into my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really looking forward to, they're taking that cape though, and they're going to display it.
The Cape is the big project.
That's the biggest.
Yeah.
And then I have some other items that are going to be displayed there
Mm-hmm.
at the museum.
You mentioned that you didn't expect to get this honor. And as you talked about that, the thing that occurred to me was I think most people who expect to get honors or who chase them don't get them.
I was
I don't think it goes
very
with the,
humble. I cried. The first sentence I cried,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, I'm too kolohi. Actually, you have to understand, I'm a Sagittarian, so I'm
that's
outspoken to a fault.
That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. Going back to your 14-year-old mindset. And,
life is a giant giggle, I mean, you got to enjoy life.
When you were, to digress a little bit, you spent some long trips on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
How long did that phase of your life relating to the canoes and the curriculum there, that whole section?
I think when we were kids, even in Tahiti, you always travel by boat.
Mm-hmm.
When you went from here to Tahiti, you had to get onto one of the Matson boats, go to San Francisco and whatever. So the exposure of the water, besides surfing and whatnot, was the most important artifact, which is the canoe.
Yeah.
Used to paddle.
That was natural. But I mean, you spent how much time, how much of your life did you spend in the canoe phase, the Renaissance, starting from the canoe, until
that
then?
Was before that, yeah.
Yeah.
And the canoe was several thousand miles on it.
The Hokulea phase ran, including your curriculum development.
Yeah.
After it ran for how many years, do you think?
20 years, I guess. Maybe.
20 years, yeah. So that was one big chunk.
I had to give up golf.
Do you play golf now? No.
To do what I do, I gave it up with the canoe and my hula.
Yeah.
I had to give it up, but I still watch golf.
We have a mother who's going to be 90 years old, and she watches golf every weekend. She enjoys it. There's something about it she likes. I never played golf
Because you're challenging yourself.
Well, and it requires a focus
Sure.
and a dedication. And I was involved in a couple benefit things where you
Sure.
don't have to be a golfer. You
Yeah,
just
yeah,
go and
yeah.
pay your money and somebody gets a benefit from it. And I could understand a couple times I was out there why people would get hooked on it, because it's like removing yourself
Yeah.
from things. It's another isolation,
Right.
focus type thing. But I also knew that in order to be good at it, it was going to take
It's a
a
mindset.
lot of dedication. Yeah.
Really mindset.
And I had too many other things going at the time. But you still relate to golf, and you haven't
Oh,
played
yeah.
it for how long? Since when?
Tiger Woods is full of I watched today.
What do you think about Michelle Wee?
I think she was over extended.
Too much, too
yeah,
much,
too
yeah.
much,
Yeah.
too soon.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful golfer.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. But, it's a mindset, too.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because she had played in Honolulu,
She's a beautiful girl.
and she had a really poor performance.
Yeah.
And then that following weekend, I was watching tennis from Australia,
Oh.
and she was down there watching Serena Williams play tennis.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
And I thought, wow, she's there. Well, it turns out Serena Williams and Michelle,
She
we have
took-
the same agent.
Ah, I
Have the
see.
same
Yeah,
agent.
yeah,
But the narrators were talking about the golf, and they said that they had spoken with Michelle Wee, and they said, here in Australia we have some great
yeah. Sure.
courses.
Sure.
He said, will you be playing any? And she said, I didn't even bring my clubs. And what we had been talking about after her poor performance
Sure.
before, she needed to take
Yeah,
a break,
yeah.
put it down and get away from it.
Too much.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the hulu, do you have any particular students who you see kind of carrying on
Oh, yeah.
that you're going to hand
Quite
off
a
to?
number.
So
Well,
you've been
they've
successful
already,
in that.
yeah, quite a number.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, Hawaii didn't have precious stones.
Hmm.
So featherwork became
Sure.
the regalia of that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
The
and
jewels.
to me,
yeah.
to me, it was the biggest challenge was getting involved. I know the first thing I made, Ethel Rita looked at me and I went, oh, okay.
Yeah. Didn't make it the first
No.
time. Yeah.
So challenging has always been my concept of,
Mhm.
to see if I can come to any type of satisfaction in learning
Mhm.
or going to some destination or anything like that.
And you've been involved in the teaching, but is it part of a plan to ensure that there's someone who carries forward from you, or is it pretty much your own thing? You're
I
doing
think it
your
was
own thing.
giving back,
Yeah.
especially on Maui here.
Mhm.
Nobody was teaching.
Yeah.
And I was teaching at Canoe Senior Center.
Mhm.
I think it's just giving back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we always had a good time, but very much into the concept of that particular art form. Hawaiians didn't do art for art's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a practicality and a
Yeah.
purpose and so forth. I have a question, and I hope you don't mind my asking it, but we've heard some issues about the name Kahanamoku and the fact that some crazy thing somebody has copyrighted the name.
Oh, yeah, I can't use my name.
You can't even use your name.
It's trademarked.
What's the background on that? And how can that possibly
Outrigger
be?
Duke Kahanamoku Foundation,
Yeah.
which was left by Nadine, Duke's wife,
Yeah.
trademarked it. The name is trademarked by the Outrigger. Then this other fella came along
Mhm.
from California,
Mhm.
and we got involved. Sandy Kahanamoku, he passed on, my cousin. We got involved with that. It didn't work out.
Mhm.
So Don Love from California, it was in one of the magazines. I have the thing there.
Mhm.
Had trademark because Jansen did not abandon the trademark.
Mhm.
So he bought the trademark.
Mhm.
So what is happening now in society here is there is the Hawaiian Now Trademark Association. And I think it might have been encouraged of what's going on,
Mhm.
and then you get all this airport art that's,
Mhm.
and so you need to be very careful today now. Because petroglyphs, I don't know how they can trademark that, but tattoos are being trademarked.
Oh my goodness.
No, it's an ongoing thing now. So
Well-
we can't use our name in business.
Okay, so you
Kahanamoku.
can't use it in a business
Yeah.
a business
I have
setting.
a nephew on California that does surfboards,
Yeah,
and it just says Kahanamoku and Sons.
yeah.
So Don Love has been taking him to court. So finally he calls me. He says, "Oh, he's going to settle, da da da," and I'm listening to all this and whatnot. And so I've never been to the shop. So I said, "Why don't you turn it into? Why don't you just call it Dukes?"
I wonder if anybody has that.
No,
Nobody.
you know. And so
That's probably the next one that's going to be.
yeah, I said, "Why don't you just call it Dukes?" But I said, "You need to encourage to have cultural activities in that shop."
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be sending him the Duke book, some of the
Yeah.
things that he can elaborate on.
Yeah. Well, it's almost unbelievable that. But I guess if it's a business name style they're talking about, but as far as carrying your name, that's not. I mean, that's what I was hearing. You couldn't even call yourself Kahanamoku, but it's in a business relationship.
It's in a business relationship.
Yeah.
We can't use it in business.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. We'll see how much more ridiculous
And
this
we don't even
becomes.
get a purr.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, at any rate, we're kind of winding up our time,
Sure.
and we appreciate you being with us
Oh,
here.
thank you
Is
very much.
there anything you want to communicate to those who are watching? I know you're doing a lot of stuff yourself, educationally, and seminars and presentations. But anything that you could give to our viewers that might give them an incentive to get off, don't just sit there and watch the television, get out and do something.
There's a story about Chubby Mitchell. I don't know if you know him.
I heard the name. But
Chubby
no,
Mitchell. He was a fantastic cook. We were up in California for a while, but he was lying on the beach at Waikiki, and this girl came up, this Holly gal, tourist came up, and she says, "You're Chubby Mitchell." She says, "I've heard so much about you. What is your philosophy in life?" And he stutters, and he looked up at her and he said, "If no can, no